All right, good morning and welcome to the Agenda on Dominion Brokers Group. This is your go-to for thought-provoking discussions, and I'm your host, Chike Ubogu, bringing you the stories that matter. Well, today we're diving into a topic that is for concern, and that's the season of renaming tertiary institutions in Nigeria and its implications. Why are our universities and polytechnics getting new names? And what does this mean for students, alumni, and the nation at large? Well, joining me this morning will be our in-house analyst, and he'll be joining us via Zoom, John Izuchukwu, this morning. However, before I bring in John Izuchukwu, in recent years, Nigeria has seen a wave of renaming tertiary institutions from federal universities to state polytechnics. Just this year, several institutions have been rebranded, often to honor prominent Nigerians or reflect regional identities. For example, in Oyo State, the Polytechnic of Ibadan, though still having some controversies, was renamed by the Executive Governor of Oyo State, Engineer Seyi Makinde, to the Omololu Olunloyo Polytechnic Ibadan. However, alumni and students have protested about it. Some years back, the University of Lagos was renamed after MKO Abiola, and similar moves have sparked debates nationwide. But is this renaming spree a step forward or a distraction? Let us explore. Let's talk about why this is happening. But before then, let me join my guest via Zoom, John Izuchukwu, this morning. John, good morning. It's good to have you on the agenda this lovely morning.
Hello.
Yeah, John, good morning. Hello, John. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the agenda this morning.
It's my pleasure to join the call.
All right. Quickly, we're talking about this renaming, the spirit of renaming tertiary institutions in Nigeria and its implications, as it were. Well, firstly, let's talk about why this is happening at this time. Why are institutions being renamed? Has it suddenly become a political phenomenon in Nigeria?
Oh, all right. Thank you for having me. You will recall that a few weeks ago, the executive governor of Oyo State renamed the Polytechnic of Ibadan to Dr. Omololu Olunloyo Polytechnic, which of course has sparked some public outrage because of the way and manner it was done. You also recall that under Jonathan, the University of Lagos was also renamed after Moshood Abiola in a way to, commemorate and stamp his legacy for fighting for democracy. However, you also recall that the Obafemi Awolowo University of today used to be the University of Ife, Great Ife, and unfortunately, fortunately as it were, the name was also renamed to, stamp the iconic impact of the late sage, Obafemi Awolowo. What I think today we are doing is that it is more political than ideological. What you see today is a mere political compensation, because you will ask me again, and I will say it again and again. The late president, perhaps, would have been a good father, a good husband, a good brother, a good uncle, or a cousin, a good cousin, but he was not a good leader.
Okay, John, just hold on. Before we delve into the issue of the past president and late Muhammadu Buhari, we still need to look at some other things here. You've talked about the issue of Obafemi.
I'm coming to what's the rationale behind, the naming the University of Maiduguri after him. It is why I'm saying that when you look at the list of schools I've mentioned, Obafemi Awolowo was an iconic stage. He was an iconic personality. He had his footprint in the entire Southwest today. When you talk about the first television station in Africa, in West Africa, you will not forget the fact that he was who brought it. When you talk about the first 25-story building today in our nation and in West Africa, you will be talking about him because he started tall there today. So you will not want such a man to be forgotten in a hurry. And so you are talking about people who had imprint in the sands of time. And history will not forget them so soon. So you cannot compare them with a man who was a colossal failure in terms of leadership, national leadership. That's the point I'm making. It's not becoming a mere political compensation. It's not a mere political giveaway by political cronies. It's no longer based on ideology. It's no longer based on the fact that it is meritorious. That's the point I'm making, Chike.
All right. So, John, really, what is driving this trend at this moment?
Well, for me, it appears to be that the current political class wants to be in the good books of certain persons. It's a mere attempt to score some cheap political gains to solidify their goal for the future. You will also recall that the current administration is beginning to face some turbulence, and it appears as if the weather, the political climate, is going to be tense in the coming days. And so everything that needs to be done in a way to have the buy-in of the North should be done as quick as possible. And one of it is of course, to elevate the person of the Madagascar who has gone to be with his Lord, and further elevate him as an impeccable personality whose imprint is clearly seen within the community of learned fellows, where you have a community of intellectuals. When you are mentioning names of university and you find out that his name, is not named after a university, you mention it named after him, it gives some impression that this person still maintain that level of integrity and the level of commitment to his nation. And so it's a way of selling themselves or preparing to sell themselves for the future. However, we must get it clear that in other nations, when you talk about the Harvard University of this world today, the Boston University of this world today, those guys were guys who had impact in their society, and they said they should not leave, their name should not be abolished easily. Their name should continue to ring in the memory of people. That's why they had to name them after those study of learning.
All right, John, let's look at this. This story came out yesterday after the Federal Executive Council meeting, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu approved the renaming of University of Maiduguri to Muhammadu Buhari University in honor of the late former President Muhammadu Buhari. President Tinubu announced the decision during the Federal Executive Council session of tributes to the late Nigerian leader. Now, the question now is, there are universities, there are colleges in Katsina State where the former president comes from. Why the renaming of University of Maiduguri there, considering so many factors? Maiduguri is made up of mostly Kanuri, and the late former president happened to be Fulani. Is this playing an ethnic card towards 2027?
Your guess is as good as mine. What's happening today is that it is clear to everybody that the Fulani ethnic group is just a minority, about a little above 8 million of them, and they've held power sway for many years in this country. And now you have a political juggernaut who is beginning to take away power from them, and there's a revolt already. And that revolt is seeing that their political doors and their political merchants are beginning to mobilize and to assemble to form a coalition that is going to, appearing fierce in their approach, looking as if they are going to pull away the incumbent president, and he has to take some preemptive measure by trying to gain the interest or the support of the indigenous people, the indigenous outer people of the north, which are largely not as fundamental as these other groups. So of course, all of that is a permutation towards 227 because desperate seasons and desperate times require desperate actions.
Okay. Well, another issue is, which I also mentioned earlier, well, why would former President Muhammadu Buhari not be renamed after a monument in Katsina State where he comes from?
That's exactly what I'm driving at. That as we speak today, the president is losing popularity among the power holders, which is majorly the Fulanis. The people that call the shot in the north, the majority of them are the Fulanis. Is losing his popularity among the Fulani. So he needs to do something that will, in a way, gain the support of the indigenous Hausa people. The Kanuri people, so that 227 will also, appear to be some kind of safety for him. But again, you also need to look at it from another angle. It could also be that the late president may not be as accepted as it were, because some things are just mere political in his own hometown. Because you look at it in a way, the governor should have for instance, made an attempt to even name a state university, after him, before the president made that pronouncement, or liaise with the president to do so. So there could be some, probably information we're not privy to, but maybe in the coming days it may unfold and we'll know why it is so.
Oh, okay, now let's leave the political angle there, and now let's get into the implications. First, what are the implications for students and alumni when there is a change of nomenclature of an institution?
Primarily, I think that the government will also take care of that. For instance, when a university change, the name of the university change, means all holders of credential and certification from that same university need to maybe issue an affidavit, or the public to be made known. You put on notice that all other credentials that have been, that were issued by that university remains valid even afterwards. So it is really not going to have any serious effect, as it were, because whether you're an alumni or a current student, all the certificates is still valid within the Nigerian system, and excepting there's a case where it needs to be challenged before the court, maybe for fraud or for malpractices, or for there's a question about your certificate from that school, and then it may now require some form of litigation. But otherwise, it doesn't really have any implication, as it were, because the government is also the regulator. It's also the people, within the regulatory framework of the University Commission. They will still be able to, provide for every other person who had or who holds a degree or a certificate at any level from that same university, even afterwards.
All right. A name change can be a big deal. So you can imagine graduating from a university only for its name to change overnight. Well, will it affect the certificate? Will the certificate bear a name that no longer exists? Do you think this can cause confusion in the job market, especially for international employers verifying credentials? And what about the cost? Rebranding means new logos, new signboards, websites, and official documents. What do you think about this, John?
The government is not complaining that they don't have money to fund all of that. The government just said that they have the money to make all of the changes that are required. To go to, NUC is their agency, to change the logo. They have the money to do that. The only thing we need to advocate for is that all holders of degrees and certificates from that same university or the same university still remains valid. For no reason should they be discriminated against at the job market, or for any reason should there be any bias raised against them at any level, whether for appointment or for anybody running for political office tomorrow, or for anybody seeking for a job. And the university should also put up a strong liaison office between the university and international community. In case there are verification issues, the university will be able to make case for their students, because they still remain the alumni.
Okay, so you are saying government has money. They're not complaining. They can fund these actions. However, in a country where education is already underfunded, do you think we can afford to divert resources to this at this moment?
Chike, I think that, you see, our government have money to spend on frivolity.
So hold on, John. Are you saying the change of nomenclature is part of the frivolities?
Let me tell you.
Contextually.
Do you think that that's a critical matter to deal with today? How does that affect the well-being of an average Nigerian? How does that provide food on the table of Nigerians? How does that subsidize transport fare? How does that pay the school fees that's already high for Nigerian students? So it is frivolity in its highest sense. It is a mere political appeasement. It's a mere political appeasement. So I don't think that they have money to be able to fund it. And so I mean that's what it is. There's no point missing words. They have money to fund it, because if they don't, that will not be a priority at this point in time.
All right, John, we're still having some of these discussions here, still looking at this name change thing. Well, there's also this question of identity. Well, basically, we know that tertiary institutions are more than buildings. They are brands with histories, values, and global recognition. Don't you think renaming can disrupt this? For instance, let me give you an instance. A university known for academic excellence might lose its prestige if the new name lacks the same weight. Don't you think so?
Certainly, it will. That was why I have argued that Dr. Olumoyo, for instance, is an excellent academic, is an excellent scholar, a first-class graduate of mathematics, is an epitome of what he should be, or what every student should look up to. He was a man who led the university, the Polytechnic of Ibadan, with impeccable character and achievement. He was also a man who was a commissioner for education for the whole Western region. I mean, this was a man who had lived his life very modestly. There was no case of corruption before, after, and even until his death. That's an ideological kind of name change. But when you talk about a man who as a military leader, head of state, he never was the one in power. He was a weak military head of state. It was the only bloodless coup that took place in Nigeria when Buhari was removed from office. It was a weak military leader. Today, therefore, was in charge. He was the one in office. He was the one ruling this country. And when he became the head of state under a democratic arrangement, he was also a weak president. Everybody under him were looking. There was so much cabal, a wave of crying every day, and nothing was happening in the country. For 80 years, he raised up Nigeria. We know that economically, politically, security-wise, Nigeria became a shadow of itself under his leadership. Such a man is not an example of one who should be elevated to that height, such that it will become an example. It has a way of affecting the psychology of people, of the mind of people. A man who could not, for several years of living office as a minister of state, could not develop himself with an OND, with an HND. He never attended any formal training anywhere. That same man became president. Shamefully so, for a country that boasts and prides itself at the giant of Africa. Shamefully so. And now that same man is not given a height.
Okay.
After that,
Okay.
students can look up for him.
All right, John. Still talking about prestige and looking at honor. Before I take you to the other question. Now, you have a former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, former president, late Muhammadu Buhari, who had gone through some rigorous criticism over his certification, especially his school certificate results and all that during his first term in office. However, he's now been named, the University of Maiduguri is now being named after such character. What does this say about, what would that name say about the university?
Well, that is exactly what I have been driving at. That you don't take a man who did not even invest in education and make him and name a university after him. What you have done, it is capable of affecting the psychology of the average student. That in this country, you do not need to study hard to make a first class or a 2-1. In fact, it is luxury to make a third class. Because the man who your university is named after had only O level that was even questionable. And he became Nigeria's president, so privileged, to be head of state for about 3 years and then end up democratically elected for 18 years. So what you are trying to tell Nigerians is that education is actually a scam. You do not need to go to school. You do not need to work hard even when you go to school. All you need to do is to join gangs and be able to get power at all costs. And that's all that's all there is about life. I mean, that's what the president is saying invariably.
All right, now on the flip side, a name that resonates with local culture or honors a national icon could boost pride and morale. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Certainly, of course, that's what it is. when you name a smart person after a university, one who had made, whose leadership is evidential, whose leadership is transformative, people want to learn after him. Most of us, even though I am not from the Southwest, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the sage, has been an example. He's been a mentor. I've read his documents, I've read his account, and I've imbibed several of his ideals. It's shaping my perspective about leadership, and particularly at national level, about my thinking, about my ideologies, about my values. So you cannot say that such a man who at that level does not deserve it. But currently, the current president, the late president, for crying out sake, check the body language of Nigeria, the mood in Nigeria today. Nobody is really mourning, except the political class. We're not really mourning, except the political class, and a few of them, to say the least, that are really mourning. We are not really mourning. That is it. The president is really mourning. If it's not just a mere charade that they're carrying out there. Because you cannot mourn a man who, in his lifetime, like Shawara said it, Shawara posted it, that he was a tyrant, and we don't mourn tyrants. We only mourn the victims of tyrants. And that was what it is. We saw it clearly. Human rights was grossly abused. If you check Amnesty International website today, they will tell you that the level of violation of human rights was very high, unprecedented under his leadership. It was under his government, Nigerian young people were murdered, massacred on broad daylight, holding the national flag, right in Lekki. And nothing came out of it today. Journalists were harassed every now and then and beaten and locked up. Over 2,000 strikes were killed. Nothing came out of it. Southeast was a shadow of himself under his leadership. He liberated the boys, IPOP, and killed them, massacred them, chased them out of the state. Oh my God! We need to look at what this man. Have you seen what happened with Benue under his leadership? And he will be indifferent. He makes no comment about what is happening. He's just busy enjoying himself and his family. And Nigeria was burning under his leadership. I think such a man does not deserve this honor.
All right. before we leave this talking point, let me ask you this. Would you say that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has scored below par at this time, especially trying to appease all ends of the polity, the North, the South? Are you saying what he did now was scoring a low point?
Well, of course, you need to understand one thing about Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Tinubu is one man who makes efforts to combat his enemies to be his friends. And if you look at his political trajectory and history, you will find out that he is very skilled in combating his political enemies to become his political friend. No matter the cost, he will pay. And I think that he has counted the cost, and he sees that one of the things to do to still, gain the loyalty of the North is to, further elevate their failed Megaskia, give him an elevated position in history. However, he has forgotten that history records, and history does not forget. History does not wipe away memory. The memory will be there. The story will be there. We will read about it. We will talk about it. And no matter what he does, he can't rewrite history, because we are life experiences of what happened under Mr. Bola, late General Buhari.
All right. So where do we go from here? Should renaming inspire?
Well, certainly that name is not going to inspire anybody. Chike, while growing up, we read Chinua Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart, The Arrow of God. We read about Soyinka. Those books inspired us because the writers of those books were known for something. We talk about Nelson Mandela today is an inspiration. We talk about Julius Nyerere. We talk about Thomas Sankara. These guys were inspired. We talk about Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. These guys were African political thought leaders. They are still inspiration today for many young Africanists, Pan-Africanists. So what I'm saying here today is that Mr. Buhari is not an inspiration in any way, except that if it's not an inspiration for the wrong things, for a coup plotter, for a failed political democratic leader, you can say it's an inspiration in that. But in terms of transformative leadership for 21st century, we expected Nigeria to have been transformed heavily under leadership, but nothing came out of it. So what inspiration is he going to bring to the table for the average young Nigeria, who is already disenchanted with leadership, already frustrated about what is happening in the country? I think Mr. President should be careful in just giving these honors to people. Because at the end of the day, it is still going to be recorded for him in history by the end of his own tenure.
Well, John, hopefully someday I should be expecting a tertiary institution named after you, maybe the John Izuchukwu University of...
Okay, in Nigeria, when you are a person of integrity, a person of value, you are on a narrow path. The Holy Book says, wide is the way that leads to destruction. That's the way Nigeria follow. We don't follow the narrow path. And so, well, not anything is possible, but I'm saying that my personal values, my ideals, sometimes people don't like to hear the truth, and it may not be easy for such a thing to be named after.
All right, John, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing some insights to this topic this morning.
All right, it's my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be part of this show.
All right, thank you, John Izuchukwu there. Yes, John Izuchukwu joined us via telephone call, not Zoom, as earlier said, via telephone call. Well, that's the agenda today, and let's keep the conversation going. Do follow us on all our social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The handle is @Dominion Broadcast. And on the app X, it is @DominionCast. You can visit our website at www.dominion.org. www.dominion.org.ng. My name is Chike Ubogu. Do have a very blissful and restful weekend. Bye for now.